From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your morning update.
Daniels Roofing, licensed, bonded, insured roofing contractor. 45 years of generational expertise, offering a variety of roofing systems in the North State. Composition shingles, metal, tile, fire-safe wood shingles, and spray foam roofing systems. An energy-saving cool roof, perfect for commercial flat roofs and mobile homes. With other companies, you may get a foreman or a salesman, but with Daniels Roofing, you get Daniel. Call today for your free estimate. Daniels Roofing, 3 generations working hard to protect your home and business.
Happy holidays from Weather NorCal and our sponsors. Have a wonderful holiday season.
Good morning, everyone. Today is the last day. If you've got that holiday spirit, you want to help a child that needs a bike. Yeah, Ted Blankenheim's 21st annual bike drive. There are several locations you can drop your bikes off. Today is the last day, so be sure to get those bikes delivered as soon as you can. Taking a look at the radar from last night and early this morning, there you can see that rain kind of kicking on in, moving off to the north and east. It's brought us some gusty winds, 40, even over 50 miles per hour for parts of the valley, and of course also some very gusty winds, although not as bad, it looks like, along the coast. But as a result of these gusty winds, very saturated ground, it's soft. Of course, the roots just can't stay in the ground as much on these saturated grounds. As a result, we see power outages, over 1,000 in Siskiyou County, 2,000 in Humboldt County, about 100 residents in Shasta County, 600 in Plumas, and 500, that is, in Butte County. So that's this morning, and we'll probably see less and more. It just depends on how the crews kind of handle the situation. But taking a look at our weather headlines, we've got more flooding, more mudslides, more rock slides, more debris flows, gusty winds. Now, what we saw last night and are seeing this morning, it's not going to be the end of it. It will subside today, but we've got more winds in the days to come. We've also got lowering snow levels over the next few days, but there is relief in sight as it will be dry but cool as we go into this weekend and early next week. All right, we've got a lot to really talk about, but first, for those of you in a hurry, well, let's take a look at your Krueger's Quickcast for your December 24th for your Christmas Eve forecast. All right, here's a look at your forecast for this morning. You notice lightning strikes. There may be actually a thunderstorm that could develop here in northern Shasta, parts of Siskiyou County, but overall just the scattered showers. But as I mentioned, it's tapering off. Now, the source for all of this is just a nice stream of moisture coming in from the south, the area of low pressure tapping into that. That same area of low pressure is responsible for the gusty winds that we've seen. So this morning, taking a look at the HRRR forecast model, which is, it updates every hour, takes a look at the latest data and projects from there. So this morning, as we go through the morning, you see how it all kind of kicks off to the east, 8 a.m. Now, remember you saw that thunderstorm activity in Siskiyou County. Well, it's picking up on the potential for that here in northern Shasta and parts of Siskiyou County as well. And maybe that thunderstorm line kind of, again, northern Shasta County midday into parts of Siskiyou County. But notice everywhere else, for the most part, it's fairly dry. And I do expect mainly dry conditions for the rest of the afternoon, minus some of those showers for Trinity, Siskiyou, Del Norte, and Humboldt counties. And then by tonight, we start to see some more rain and snow, for that matter, begin to work its way from the south. So our rainfall chances are slim today, but as we go into Thursday, Friday, much higher, and then they drop just in time for the weekend and early next week. So for today, you've got temperatures in the mid-50s for the valley, 40s for many of the higher elevations, and mid to upper 50s for the coast and inland. And tonight, upper 40s to low 50s for the valley, 30s for the higher elevations, and we're looking at temperatures mainly in the 40s out for many places for the north coast. All right, so here's your 7-day forecast for the valley. As I mentioned, mainly dry today. We are going to be talking about the potential for thunderstorms even for the valley a little bit later. But you saw on HRRR it wasn't showing anything for the valley. We'll take a look at our in-house model as well. But again, it dries out for the weekend and stays dry into early next week. And really across the board, we are seeing that drier trend by the weekend. Snow levels dropping, as I mentioned, 3,500 feet on Thursday for Weaverville down to 3,000 feet on Friday. That's the case for Siskiyou County around Mount Shasta, and around 4,000 feet for Alturas on Thursday, but 3,500 feet by Friday, and around 4,000 feet on average for the eastern mountains. And I do expect those drier conditions also for the weekend. All right, so here's what I'm tracking, and it's really this three main things I've been talking about. A series of storms, which means heavy rainfall with the possibility for more flooding. And with the rain that we've already seen and the rain that we're going to see on top of that, there's a potential for some flash flooding. And that means during a period of some heavy rainfall, if it sticks around long enough, it could help agitate some of the flooding that we've seen and maybe see it reemerge in some areas. But I will say this to help ease your mind a bit. It won't be as bad, at least for the Redding area, it won't be as bad as what we saw on Sunday. Most likely, unless of course a convergence line sets up in the same spot in the same situation, but most likely that's not going to happen. Gusty winds at times, 30 to 50 miles per hour, possible wind damage. We've already seen that. The power outages so far this morning, and snow levels are dropping, which means there are going to be travel delays. We're going to get into all of that in complete detail. That is in your deep dive forecast, sponsored by Shasta Hearing Aids.
Frank, come help with the dishes.
What?
The dishes!
I heard it the first time. I just got back from Shasta Hearing Aids, but she doesn't know it yet. What?
Forget it!
All right, so let's take a look at that radar here, and you can clearly see that stream coming in from the south. Now, what you saw here late last night and early this morning is that widespread rain. You see how we're beginning to see a bit of a break. We have a line here to the west, another line here. All of this is moving to the north, northeast, and shifting eastward in general. So what we have here is drier air coming in from the southwest here. That drier air is also going to be working its way over us, and that's why we do expect to see a drier day for most of us. A lot like yesterday. You know how we saw that rain in the early morning hours and then it kind of dissipated. Essentially, I think we're going to see that for today, although there are going to be some bigger chances for a few stray showers, and we'll talk about that chance for thunderstorms here in just a bit. But there's that moisture coming in from the south. Area of low pressure spinning has been intensifying. That's responsible for the gusty winds that we have seen. You'll notice a bit of a spin right here. That spin is eventually going to work its way into Northern California, give us more gusty winds, tap into moisture, give us more rain as well. So there you can see the 1-2 punch I was talking about. This is the first one that's moving through this morning. Here's that second punch right here. It's going to develop and get stronger, give us gusty winds, more rain, and lower snow levels as a result. Now, as that storm system continues to push off to the east, we're going to be looking at more rain on Friday, more snow in the higher elevations, more wind. But then by Saturday, Sunday, high pressure builds in. We've got drier conditions. A little breezy, but a north breeze is what we're going to be looking at here over the weekend. Certainly not to the extent with the winds that we've seen here and will see. Now, this is taking a look at the severe weather outlook. This comes in from Norman, Oklahoma. It's known as the Storm Prediction Center. Every day they release a couple of times a day a severe weather outlook for the entire nation. What they're expecting here for Northern California today, the areas in light green, is just an overall general sense that there is a chance for thunderstorms. Where you see the darker shades of green, it's known as a marginal risk. It's a category 1. It's the lowest category. Actually, the lowest is this. It's not even in the categories. But when you get in that marginal risk, saying, all right, we may see that potential for maybe a strong to severe thunderstorm developing in the region. Now, here's another thing that's interesting. This doesn't happen for us very often, but the Storm Prediction Center is seeing, and of course I'm seeing a little bit of that as well, some of the severe weather indices that would lead to the potential of a tornado, a spin-up, if you will. But you see it's the lowest category, 2%. So there is a very, very small risk. If a thunderstorm even develops, we've got to have a thunderstorm develop first, and then you would see that tornado develop. But most likely, I'm not seeing much in the way of thunderstorm activity developing in the region, and I'll show you why. Let's take a look. We saw HRRR forecast model. It didn't show anything for the valley, right? It was mainly up to the north. Same thing with our in-house model that you can see right here. 8 a.m., you see how it's mainly northern Shasta County, Siskiyou County this morning. There may be some thunderstorms there. Heavier rainfall off to the east. But the drier air, as you can see, is beginning to move in. So as we go through midday, once again, you see where we're seeing most of the activity, northern Shasta and into southeastern Siskiyou County. Maybe an isolated thunderstorm there, but overall, you look everywhere else, look at that. I mean, we may even see some breaks in the clouds through the midday hours. All right, so there's 5 p.m. Wednesday. You'll notice nothing really happening. Now, you see a little bit of pop-up here and there. Those could be a few thunderstorms developing, so we'll have to watch that as we go into this afternoon and evening. In the meantime, you got some rain off to our west, but once again, you're looking at dry conditions across the region. So a mainly dry day today. But by tonight, actually tonight, we're going to have 2 pushes of moisture coming in. The first one coming in this evening, tonight. Most of you won't be in bed just yet. You'll notice the rain and the wind kicking in. We've got some blue on the map indicating snow, but snow level is still fairly high, probably around 4,500 feet on average still at this point. Okay, now we're going to take you into early Christmas morning. This is a cold front right here. That's that second round of heavier rainfall coming in along with those gusty winds. Snow levels still at this point are around 4,500 feet in advance of the cold front. But behind the cold front is colder air. So as that colder air moves in, watch what happens with all of this rain. Turns blue. All right, so now we're seeing that colder air move in. We're beginning to see those snow levels drop. So by Christmas morning, if you have travel plans in the mountains, do note that there's a very good chance you'll be dealing with chain requirements east of I-5. There is a small chance that you may be dealing with chain requirements on I-5 north of Redding, and a small chance west of I-5. You'll notice on Highway 299, it looks like mainly rain, but Highway 36 in Trinity County may be dealing with some of those snow down to about 3,500 feet or so. All right, then you can see another push later in the day on Christmas Day with some heavy rainfall, more snow, more chain requirements are going to be a possibility there. Okay, now we're going to take you into, there you can see, if you see me flashing here, my light is having a little bit of an issue, kind of comes in and out a little bit here. But there you can see 10 p.m. on Thursday, we've got more snow. All right, so more snow means more travel delays. And even as we go into Highway 299 west, Highway 236 west, maybe some chain requirements there, and on I-5 around Mount Shasta northward. So obviously a lot to really pay attention to if you're going to be traveling. Now, here we are going into the day after Christmas on Friday. Still another travel day, right? For many of you, maybe you're heading back home, maybe you're going somewhere else, right? But you see how we have more snow, more snow, more snow off to the west. In fact, I expect another slightly colder surge of air to come in Thursday night, Friday morning, which could lower the snow levels even more. So now we're talking better chances for places on Highway 299 west, Buckhorn Summit, Oregon Mountain, Berry Summit, for example, and on Highway 36 and also on I-5. But you'll notice it's becoming a little bit more scattered, right? It's not as widespread as we go through the day on Friday, but still the chances through the afternoon, and then it's just clearing on out. Now, what we're going to have to watch for, I know we don't want to talk about it too much, but we have to watch for maybe some fog developing in the Sacramento Valley. If the winds pick up enough, though, that may scour it out here pretty quickly, and I think that's pretty much what's going to be the case here. There you can see, though, look at that. Some sunshine returning. And I tell you what, by that point, a lot of the mountains are going to be snow covered. It's going to be gorgeous when we clear things out and kind of get a nice look at that, get a nice look at the mountains. Now, the in-house forecast model has, I think, been underplaying the amount of rainfall here. It's only showing less than 2 inches of rainfall, about 1.5 inches, close to 2 inches in the valley. I'd say we're going to be in the 2 to 3 inch range. Is what we're going to be looking at here total from basically today all the way through Friday night. And I would expect that we're going to see more along the coast as well. So I don't think our in-house forecast model is doing a very good job, but there will be periods of heavy rainfall, and that's what can agitate some of the areas that have seen flooding. And that's why there's still a flood watch here through Friday. This is a flood watch I've been talking about pretty much all week long, and is going to be the case here. So again, I want to stress this. I mentioned this last night. I mentioned it during my Krueger's Quickcast or earlier in this weathercast. I want you all who live in the Redding area who were impacted by the flooding from the convergence line to note that that convergence line was a very special situation. It was very unique. It was uncommon for it to at least last that long. And you saw in a matter of 10 hours, 5 to 8 inches, and in some cases even more, of rain in a 10-hour span. That is what created the massive flooding that we did see. We are going to see, as you saw, 2 to 3 inches of rain in a matter of 3 days. That is a big, big difference. However, as I mentioned, that doesn't mean you can let your guard down, because as I mentioned, when you see these downpours kind of come through for a period of time, that can agitate areas that have seen flooding, and you can see some of those reemerge. Most likely not to the extent that we did see on Sunday in the Redding area, but there are also going to be new areas that may see some flooding as well. Mudslides and debris flows are something we have to pay attention to, and we take a look at the 48-hour observed and the 96-hour levels here as we kind of the forecast, right? So you can see it was on Monday, even on Sunday night, in the moderate flood stage, close to major actually, when we look at Eel River at Fern Bridge, but big drop. Stays fairly low, but we see it spike a little bit here, but staying only in the action stage, so not as much of a concern there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Sacramento River at Tehama Bridge. You can see here as we go through the week going into Thursday, Christmas Day, it kind of gets close to the minor flood stage, but not quite. It's forecast to crest at 208.48, so it should stay below the minor flood stage, but it will get close. And then you can see it kind of drops after that as we go into Friday, and in particular for the weekend. Now take a look at the precipitation outlook for the end of the month into January 1st, or 3rd that is. We're actually just in the what we call equal chances of above and below normal rainfall. Bottom line, what it's basically illustrating, less chances for rainfall. All right, so take a look at this. This is the setup for the windy and cold conditions. I've been showing you this as well, but that's diving down to the south. This will be responsible for not only giving us the windy conditions, but also lowering those snow levels as that colder air begins to move on in. So low snow levels and those gusty winds working their way in. Now, as that low pressure moves through our southwest, or southeast that is, the winds are strong through the day on Friday, but then this will kind of what we call retrograde and move down to the south, and that will move on out, and then we've got high pressure building in, and that's going to give us the drier conditions over the weekend and into early next week. All right, there's a high wind warning for the areas in light blue, and of course the blue here is where you have wind advisory. This is through the morning, this is through midday, and this is through Friday. All of these will most likely be reissued because I do expect to see more winds over the next couple of days. So let's take you through the rest of the day today. Still a bit gusty at times through the day in the valley, but you can see here overall the wind's not as bad by this evening, but by tonight they reemerge. They're picking back up across the board. Windy through the day on Thursday with gusty winds off and on. Friday morning, still very strong winds, and they can see as we go through the afternoon on Friday, they start to subside and much calmer winds by the time we get into Saturday. But with that area of low pressure down to our south and east, and we've got that high pressure to the west, that could give us a little bit of a breezy north wind, but certainly not to the extent that we are going to see here. This is what we call a forecast wind swath. What it does is it takes now through Friday morning, and it basically highlights the strongest gust that we'll see during that time frame. So as you can see here, over the next 3 days, we've got the potential for gusts upwards of 40, 50, and I'd even say in that 60 mile an hour range. Some of the higher exposed ridge tops could get into that 60 to 70 mile an hour range. All right, so there's the winds, right? Now let's talk about the snow. We have several winter storm warnings across the area. It does not include the coast, and it does not include the valley or central Siskiyou County, but I still think you're going to see some of that snow out there. Snow levels generally between 3,500, 4,500 feet. I think it could drop a little bit lower than that, especially for late Thursday night and Friday morning. Talking about the good that's going to come out of this, yes, the ski park, it's opening on Saturday, December 27th because of this projected snow. Now, it hasn't started just yet, but we've got to get through today. We've got to get through Christmas Day and Friday. I think it's going to be really tonight, Thursday, and Friday when you're really going to see all of this really kind of come down, and it's going to be low enough snow levels for that. But looking at the road conditions, this will only take us out through tonight, but there you see 9 a.m., there you can see some of the snow. Now, we're watching a few places like Scott Mountain. There may be some snow here later today on Scott Mountain Pass in Trinity County and Highway 3. But you can see everywhere else, there's just not much of a concern here. But then as we go into the overnight hours tonight, into early Thursday morning, you can start to see we're getting kind of that ice and kind of that rain snow mix. So we'll have to watch that here for early Thursday morning. But as we saw in Futurecast, by the time you get past about 3 o'clock in the morning, a lot of this will turn over to just all snow. So again, that's why I think Thursday morning is going to be a bit of a concern with chain requirements and maybe even on I-5 near Mount Shasta. But I do think places like Buckhorn Summit and Highway 36, you may eventually start to run into some of that snow as well. So here's some of the forecast snow totals, just to kind of give you an idea. Today, again, not much of a concern, but then we go through the day on Thursday, there's more snow coming in, and then more snow on top of that through the day on Friday. So it just progressively gets worse and worse, and especially as those snow levels begin to drop by Thursday night into Friday. Chain requirements this morning in the Tahoe region, as you can see on Highway 50, Interstate 80, beginning to see some of those chain requirements, 88 and Highway 4. So if you're heading out towards Tahoe, do note that there are chain requirements, and that's something you need to be aware of, that there are going to be some delays. And there you can see that snow here throughout the day today that we are seeing on those overpasses, mountain passes. And then, of course, as we go into Thursday morning, Christmas morning, you're seeing that snow there as well. So again, just be aware of that. And again, if you're traveling here, just like the North State, we're seeing the Tahoe region and the Sierra seeing more and more snow over the coming days. But as mentioned, by Saturday, that will come to an end. All right, so here's a look at those lake levels as we take a look at Trinity, Shasta, and Oroville, all now over 100%. Yesterday, it was about a 10-foot increase. It's about a 4-foot increase for Oroville, a 2.5-foot increase for Shasta Lake, and about a foot increase for Trinity Lake. So all this rain has certainly been very beneficial in at least bringing up those lake levels a bit. There you can see those wave heights by this evening should start to drop again, but later on as we go into Thursday, yeah, those winds picking up and the wave heights picking up as well. As a result, the National Weather Service has issued a hazardous seas warning with those winds from the south at about 30 to 35 knots. All right, so that's, it's just not going to be a good situation to be out there probably over the next few days. So here's a look at your neighborhood forecast, sponsored in part by Dignity Health. Yes, we're finally getting into that forecast, right? Temperatures up at 40 to about 50 here for Trinity County. Isolated showers today, but overall not very wet. After, of course, this morning. Snow levels eventually may be as low as 3,000 feet by Friday, but it does dry out by the time we get into the weekend. There again, maybe an isolated shower for the North Coast, off and on rain for Thursday and Friday, drying out across the board by the weekend and early next week. 57 Gasquet and Orleans, about 54 degrees. For Siskiyou County, you've got snow levels around 3,500 feet on Thursday. You may see an isolated shower or thunderstorm even, especially for the first half of the day, drying out by the weekend. Taking a look at Modoc County, you've got mainly dry conditions after these morning showers, down to maybe 3,500 feet by Friday, also drying out for the weekend. For the Eastern Mountains, I think you're going to be mainly dry after these morning showers, and then there you can see that rain and snow. Snow levels around 4,000 feet on average for the Eastern Mountains, but places like Bernie, maybe around 3,000, 3,500 feet. All right, here's your valley neighborhood forecast to the south. Temperatures will be in the mid-50s, mainly dry. Slight chance for an isolated thunderstorm. That's something we'll have to watch closely throughout the day. Your 7-day forecast for Chico. Christmas Day, you're wet. You're wet on Friday, but not so wet on this weekend and early next week. We take you up to the north. You see about 55 degrees for Anderson and Palo Cedro, 54 for Cottonwood. Off and on rain through Friday, mainly dry today. And again, that off chance for a stray thunderstorm developing today. And we'll have to watch for that potential for a spin up as well. So the first thing I want to watch is a thunderstorm develops. If a thunderstorm is developed, and then I'm going to watch it very, very closely for the potential for spin ups, right? And then we go into Christmas Day, wet and windy. The day after Christmas, wet and windy. And then by Saturday, Sunday, we're going to be looking at drier conditions and a little bit warmer too. All right, that is your morning update. Be sure to keep checking in for all of the latest. I'll have the latest at noon, and then another deep dive forecast at 6 o'clock this evening. Have a great day.
Barr & Mudford is a top established firm here in the North State. Founded over a half-century ago, Barr & Mudford is protecting the rights of our neighbors and community. We take our commitment to our clients very seriously and provide a level of excellence unrivaled in the North State. Bar and Mudford, standing up for the rights of our neighbors and our beautiful community, serving Northern California with excellence.